Hello there and welcome to Cultivating Confidence, and our title today, which is Holding the Line, Integrity Under Pressure. It's on the tip of everyone's tongue at the moment, the cost of living crisis. And what does that mean? It's kind of the narrative we're hearing all along when times get tough. And do your values bend or break? Do you chase the dollar or the pound, as it were? Do you chase the pound and reduce what you, or change what you, where your principles are? Or do you maintain them in this crisis confidence, in this, cost of living crisis that we're all aligned to? I'm Jill Gayk, and this is the lovely Kirsty Vandenberg, and we're going to be talking about that a little bit more and giving you a little bit more confidence of how you can maintain those lines even when it feels like life and the environment we're in is quite stressful.
It's so
I don't
easy.
know about you, Kirsty, but I'm pretty convinced that a lot of the buzz is you have to make the choice as whether you get sucked into the narrative about the crisis and how the market is downturn and all of those kind of things, or whether you actually maintain your line and your confidence in that sense and say that actually it doesn't necessarily mean that there aren't opportunities. I think there are plenty of opportunities. What happens, I think, in these circumstances, the people that maybe started a business just for fun, and they lose their confidence and they disappear from the marketplace. But actually what it is the good people stay. And I think that that's what we have to remember is if you're really good at what you do, then there will always be a market for you. And it's about maintaining your confidence and believing it and your belief in yourself as much as anything, and not necessarily, slipping into the fight to the bottom, which is reducing your prices all of the time, or not maintaining the values that you have about the type of people you work for or work with and the results that you're looking to help people achieve, and not just worrying about those kinds of things. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I do, because as you were talking, I was just thinking about all the things, because I'm actually in growth this year, which is really exciting. I'm looking at things going, and I'm earning more. I am much busier. I've put things in place to make it easier to work with me, so there's less barriers to entry, so I'm streamlining the processes. But actually the big thing here was I stuck to my values. But if I go back, and this is the big thing here, if I go back to what I started with 5 years ago, marketing with my key messages, with everything that I was doing, I'm saying the same thing that I did then. Yes, things have moved on. Yes, the way that I coach. Yes, I have adapted. And I think that's an important word.
Yeah.
I have adapted my work to go with, and embracing the AI and the generations of stuff that is constantly evolving. But so I keep an eye on the trends. But I've stuck to my values. I've stuck to my core messaging. I've stuck to my target audience. I haven't changed any of that. I guess the biggest thing was, and this is where your advice came in actually, was actually I raised my prices, which I know sounds counterintuitive. We're in a world where everyone's talking about money, 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 but everyone's forgetting about the value of money. And so I started much more focusing on the impact that you would get working with me, the value that I give you, and why you would work with me. But I also made it simple to book and get access to me. So yes, there is an impact, but I do believe that if you stick with your values, I do believe if you stick to your messaging, you can ride this storm. I don't know if you've got anything to add there.
Yeah, actually, again, the same thing as it always happens as you were talking, I was thinking the same when you said it's been a year of growth, and it's quite interesting. I don't talk quite often about some of the things that are going on in my personal life, but let's just say I've had a really good growth year, but I've also had a huge amount of stress to deal with, and it's been thrown at me. And it's quite interesting how despite all of that, things have been maintained. And I mean, honestly, if I told you one or two of the things that have been happening in my life, I think most people would have fallen apart. But I think I would have fallen apart. But you just have to keep going, don't you? And I think that and the other thing that I think what you were saying about focus, keep maintaining your focus. If you suddenly go into panic mode because of the situation and try to be all things to all people, what happens is that you actually don't, you're nothing to nobody, because you're losing that integrity of what it is that you were, what it is that you started out with, and what your purpose was, and what values you wanted to give to your client base. And all of a sudden you dilute your offering. So actually staying very focused helps. And I know certainly in my situation where my time has been reduced, so I'm not able to say yes to everything. It's back to that conversation we had about no. I'm not able to do all of the things that I want to do. So I have to be very clear and very focused about what it is that I can do and who I'm helping for my own peace of mind, but also for my clients. And that actually has helped me. And it means that I'm more focused and more successful, because every conversation I have is very much defined about, this is what I do and this is what I don't do. So actually that integrity thing is maintained.
Where I have dropped, I will be honest, and I'm just going to move my camera down because I've realised I've set it up too high. So there you go, everybody. I've just pulled my camera down. One of the things that I did, and I am guilty of recently, but again, because I've already done all the groundwork, is I haven't had time to do my own marketing. Now we're live right now, and that's great. And I've got another live tomorrow, so it's great. So the lives have continued on, but actually, and that's because I've made a commitment, I've got the value in place, and I continue to keep that rolling. But actually, I haven't been able to market. And you haven't noticed this, and I call it smart marketing, but I haven't been able to market because actually I've been busy with clients, which is great, but I didn't drop my price. So this is the other thing. I do different pricing. So I have a something that I think is really important for people to look at is I have what's known as a recommended retail price. Now I learned this from working at Hanwha and D-Link. We have a recommended retail price. That is what everybody sees if you go to my website. You will see an RRP. That it doesn't mean you can't work with me. You can pick a package off the shelf. You can go to my contact page and you can book that package. Alternatively, you can book to work with me, and then I can discuss different packages that I can create that will work with you. But I do offer, and this has really been a really big value add for me this year, is I offer a partner pricing. And that means if somebody that I've worked with or somebody that I want to work with offers my services, now the way it's worked for me is most of the people want to pass that discount on to the person they're recommending it to rather than taking a kickback. So I didn't do the associate model. So I do have a discount, but it's only through a recommendation and it's a partner discount. I don't know. So that did maintain my values because it allowed me to expand my network and work with people and support them in a different way.
Yeah, I think it's also what I quite liked is what you talked about, how you're adapting using new things, but maintaining your value and your offering. And I think that that's really important. And I've certainly had conversations with quite a few people recently saying, do I turn clients down that I don't want, that I find difficult to work with, or do I turn down business that's in a sector that I really have adversity to, and it's that kind of thing. And I think it's really important that we maintain our integrity in those sectors, in the way, because for our own, because that's how you feel good about yourself. And when you feel good about yourself, you deliver better. And I think that's really, I think that's the crux of it, is where you're in an environment where you your values are misaligned. That's where things start to go wrong. And you kind of, it's a road going off in the wrong direction. And I think that's where we also said that whole thing where we've all worked in environments where the reason, it's back to, why are you in business? What are you doing this for? We've all worked in environments where we suddenly felt like the square peg in the round hole. And we took a step away from that so that we had control over what it is that we're doing and why we're doing it and who we're doing it with. And I think that it's important that you don't go back to that whole feeling of being in the wrong place with the wrong people. So absolutely, it's back to one of the goal mapping principles that we talk about is your why. Why are you doing this? What was your long-term reason for doing this? And double checking that and checking back in. I think it's really important that when you're having a little bit of a crisis of confidence, we all have a bit of imposter syndrome and going, yeah, and it's actually checking back in.
And talking about that for a second, talking about that for a second, the worthlessness. Now, it's interesting because we were just discussing this off air, but the race to the bottom, the constant reducing your price, the constant. So if you've got an RRP, for instance, of £175, let's not go for the hour, but roughly on an hourly rate, or £350 for 2 hours, whatever you want to put your price out there, and you start thinking, oh, I'm going to reduce my price because people won't pay it. What you're doing is you're slowly chipping away at your own self-worth. And in comes in that imposter syndrome, and in comes in that doubt. And suddenly you're charging out at £75 an hour when you should be charging out at 175. Now, I'm not talking about hourly rates are not great, as I said, but can you imagine if you think about it, if you go, no, as I said, I've got a partner discount, but that is clearly and only to my partners. And those are the partners that have signed up with me that we're going to work work in partnership. And it's about partnership. So, they work for me, I work for them, we do referrals, and it's a really lovely, warm way of working. But if you start thinking, I put a proposal out there, and I know so many people who do this, I'm going to not put my full price on there because I don't think they can afford it. So you've already, in your own head, created a subtextual conversation with the client that you've not even had.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you've already eroded and started to erode and filled your own little ant coming up going, I'm not worthy, I'm useless. And oh my goodness, it just goes on. You're the coach and you're much better at this than I am. I'm just the business owner who goes, yeah, it's not
well, but we all fall into the trap. And it's a little bit of that, is a bit that psychology is we all want, we're almost offering a Ferrari. Yeah. We're selling a Ferrari, but at a Skoda price, and it's that whole, and that's our opening conversation, where actually we should be doing it the other way around. It's be clear where your market sits, and people will value you as well. But it is back to the self-worth and thing. It's making sure that your values are not compromised in that thing. It's all very well doing it occasionally, but just be aware of the impact on you as a person, and everybody around you, and how that impacts your brand. Yeah. And I think that what's really important, we talk about brand from a marketing perspective, is you maintain that brand identity, that you don't suddenly slip down. And you can see it in you can see it on the high street brands and all that kind of, all of those businesses that have those brand identities, that as soon as you compromise it, you lose the market. I mean, if we're talking cars, Jaguar Land Rover, that awful advert, I mean, that's crushed it. We can talk about Tesla and how
let's not
the brand,
another brand,
the impact on changing the narrative around what it is that you do and you deliver, how that impacts everybody around you. So it's always being integral to who you are and your brand.
And it's really interesting because I do, when I put my proposals out there, I do a good, better, best. And the reason I do, and this is again back to our customer types and why people buy. Okay, so people buy initially from you. They're buying you, they're buying your service, they're buying because they like you. There are people who are looking for the three for two, but they'll be down at the local chemist that's doing a 3 for 2. There are people who are looking for the best deal. But in today's market, today, how we as consumers, we as business people, we as just humans shop, is that 80% of a decision is made before any human interaction. And you know, just go and look at Rightmove, okay? We are all using it, whether we're looking to move or we're just having a bit of, you know, property porn. Whatever we're doing, we are surfing. Yeah, we are all on, wherever my phone is, we're all on our phones, we're all looking, we're all comparing, we're all looking for the best deal. So when it actually comes down to making a decision, ultimately, as a business or as somebody who works in business. So if you're in a sales structure, if you are back where I used to be selling CCTV, it is yours to lose. And I'm going to leave that there. I'm going to make it land. It is yours to lose. So why are you devaluing yourself? Why are you already second guessing yourself? And why are you not holding firm to your own beliefs and your own standards? Because if you've done everything and you're all aligned, then it's yours to lose, because 80% of the decision is already made. So suddenly, if you come in too cheap, what have you just done?
Yeah. It's back to, yeah, I mean, well, we all talk about that. We make decisions based on emotion and justify them based on logic. Yeah. So actually it's tapping into that emotion. And I don't think it matters whether you are working in business, you know, employed or self-employed. It's the same thing. As soon as your values are misaligned, you start to you start to mistrust yourself as much as anything. So actually, do you know what? Stay true to yourself and hold that line. And what you will do is you will maintain, the people around you will hold the line with you. I think it's really
that's
important,
really,
that belief that.
but that's where you come in. And this is something that people don't, I mean, they don't realize. We talk pretty much daily, right? You know, weekends maybe not so much because I'm normally juggling a child, but we talk pretty much daily. And there are points where you will question me, and I don't like it. I'm going to be honest, because not many people can question me. And there are points where I don't like it. It feels uncomfortable, but you keep me accountable. But I'm going to go one step further back. You helped me sort my pricing out. Let's go right the way back. You helped me set my goals, and even down to, you know, a big decision that was offered this year. Really lovely bit of publicity. It would have catapulted me somewhere, but did it align to my brand values? And I remember that conversation and all those questions. So it all comes back down to getting your goals and your values aligned. And that's exactly what you do for me, right?
Yeah, well, I hope so. That's the plan. It's a bit, yeah. Thank you. Hooray. Yeah, I mean, it's so easy. It's so easy to be pulled off track and and it's back to that whole thing is what being aware of the environment you're in and making sure that it's not it's somewhere where you are very comfortable, because the stories that you hear around you can sometimes, yeah, put you off your game a little bit. There's a lot of echo chambers around, or negative talk, and sort of doom. There's a lot of doom and gloom if you want to listen to it. And I think it's really important that every now and again you switch it off. And I would say switch off some of the doom and gloom and focus on what it is that you want. And that's where having goals is really, really valuable, because what it is, it's something that you're in control of. Because they are your goals, they're personal to you. You have control over them, and that is something that you can work towards. I think we all feel a little bit out of whack when we don't feel like we have control anymore. That somebody else is making the decisions. So yeah, do we have any comments?
We've just had somebody comment saying, when you're faced with this, that it's come through as data analytics, so I don't know who the name is, but it says, when you're faced a situation where upholding your core values comes with a significant cost, what helped you make that difficult choice? So I'll pose that to you, and then I'll do my best to answer it.
Well, it's a significant cost in the short term, maybe. Yeah. So sometimes you have to look at how will this affect me immediately. I'm just trying to think if there's an example I maybe an opportunity. Well, it's the same as we've, somebody said, I've got this really great idea. If you can come along and do this free thing for me, I'll give you lots of work. In fact, somebody did that. Oh yeah, join my website and it will be really exciting and you've got plenty of opportunity. And I kind of turned it down because I don't have, because it impacted me time wise. So that you have to look at the cost in multiple areas. It's not just the money factor. It's, is it the time? Is it taking you off track of where you want to be? Is it too soon? And it's those are the questions that you need to ask yourself. Why would I say yes? What will it stop me doing? And what will it enable me in the future? Do I need this now? Yeah. And I think it's those kind of questions that you need to have a think about before you jump in. And sometimes just stopping and pausing is good. And don't ever be forced into rushing an answer. Always have a little bit of something in your back pocket. Is I need to think about that. Let me come back to you. I need to see if I can fit this into my diary. And it's about those kinds of things. It's being aware of what's good for you as well as for other people.
And that's really good advice.
Good answer?
Yeah. No, and I was going to say what came down to it. So when I turned down this great bit of publicity, which would have been amazing, don't get me wrong, would have been amazing. The reason I turned it down was if it was going to generate as much work as I was being told it would, I couldn't deliver that. I would have lost my core values. My work to my existing clients would have been impacted. My family life would be impacted. And whilst it would be lovely, and yes, I could bring in extra people and I can train people to go and deliver my workshops, and that's all good. And, I do have a band of actors and small business owners who can go and deliver my courses, but they're not me. And I go back to that, people buy from people and people are buying me. Now, yes, they are buying by right. So you're doing my public speaking and presenting on camera workshop. You're buying the workshop and anyone in theory can deliver it, but they're not me. And so it comes down to, what could I deliver? Was I ready as a business owner? And I'll be honest, at that point, no, I wasn't ready. Did I have the structure and the scaffolding in place? These are the questions you were asking me.
Yeah, exactly.
Do I have the scaffolding? Do I have the structure? Am I ready for that level of work? Or what can I do to create it? And actually, I remember saying to the person who was offering me this publicity, I went, what it came down to was the cost of the so the opportunity. They said to me, would you do the opportunity for free? Yeah, if we offered it to you for free, would you take it? I went, of course I would. I'd be silly not to. And he went, so why don't you? And I went, because I'm still going to have to pay that much money to train up a team to get them to where I am. And that's why I didn't take it. Because whilst it was lovely because it was free of charge, and the original price was $5,000, I turned it down because I couldn't have delivered the work, and I'd have had to spend that money, that investment to train people up and take the risk that these people might not be where I want them to be in time. I hope that's it. When they've come back, I've always held the core value that we shouldn't take advantage of customers, but I've noticed that certain business practices seem to walk a fine line between smart strategy and strategy and potentially. I'm being dyslexic there. Exploitative tactics. I agree with that. And then we've got, I'm curious, have either of you faced a moment where industry norms conflict with your personal ethics around customer treatment? How did you navigate that tension between business and sustainability? I'm going to throw that one to you.
Has certainly been. Say that again.
Have either of you faced a moment where industry norms conflicted with your personal ethics around customer treatment? I have. How did you navigate that tension between business and sustainability?
It's and
that, by the way. Thank you.
That is a really difficult one, because there you are fundamentally misaligned with the business that you're working in. And I think that it's at that point you need to start thinking about where do I go from here? And I've certainly been in environments where that felt, it felt like there was a misalignment between my own personal values on fairness and being treated equitably, no matter who you are. And that it ate away at me. And I must say, I would say at the time, I wasn't in a position to stick to my principles from a financial perspective, because I had 3 children to feed. And so maybe, and I would say that I lost a little bit of my soul. So, and so I won't do that again is the answer. And I think it's really important. And there have been several times where I've worked, another one where I've worked in an environment where they weren't practicing what they preached. And that really didn't stick well with me. And I thought, you can't tell your clients this when actually you don't practice it yourself. So that was another point where I removed myself from that situation. Yeah.
And I did it with honesty. I'm going to be really, really brutal. I worked for a company that did what we called the silence. So that's when they didn't get back to customers because they didn't have an answer, or they didn't know how to give the answer. And this could go on for weeks. And I dealt with it by saying and going back to the customer. There were more things that went on, but I was totally honest and transparent, because I decided that I had to stick to my core belief, which is communication. And if I didn't have an answer, it was better to go back and say, I'm really sorry. I am still waiting. I'm really sorry, but this is the truth. And it actually earned me friends. I've got friends off the back of this who are still with me today, who are still my biggest champions, supporting me as I run this business. It's not easy. There was one company that I worked for, they got sold, and the new company that bought them, I didn't necessarily agree ethically. And I spent 48 hours in bed sobbing my heart out as I worked out my way to leave the company, because I didn't agree with the principles of the company. And it was a really big decision. And my in-laws were over at the time. And I tried really hard to be positive, and it wasn't very easy.
No, I think that's the issue. I think we probably have it. I think that's the whole thing, isn't it? Is at what point do you step away? And I think it's really important that you do. I've definitely felt, because the one thing that's really important is my biggest value is how other people perceive me, and it's honesty and truth. And I think it's much easier. I've learned that very early on. If you make a mistake, it's far better to own up to the mistake and talk about what you're going to do to rectify it, rather than try and hide it. So and I say the honesty factor really plays out, because people remember that, and it makes you trustworthy. Because even if you say, I'm really sorry, I don't have an answer for you, it's quite difficult depending on what level you're working at in a business. When you're working at quite a senior level in the business, you are representing that business, and it's quite difficult to maintain that. I think sometimes you just have to be that's when politics come into play, I'm afraid, with small p, when you're working in a larger organization. And I think you just have to be a little bit aware of where you sit. And actually, quite often you find other people in your peer group are having similar issues. I would talk about it honestly.
And I think that's the thing. There's always going to be data analytics has come back with felt like choosing ethics might mean choosing struggle. Unfortunately, sometimes it really is. A good piece of advice I was given years and years and years ago by a singing teacher when I was still training to be a performer and an actor was, if your heart and your head are in agreement, it's a good decision. If your heart is telling you one thing and your head is telling you another, trust your head over your heart, but always choose heart and head. And the reason he said to choose head over heart is our heart might be telling us what we really, truly desire and what we truly want, but the head will keep us logical and in the right place, especially if it means financial stability. And not necessarily the right answer, not the easiest of answer either,
No.
but head and heart aligned, you're on the right path. You're always going to be in a difficult position when you've got heart or head fighting. I don't
Yeah,
know.
and I think that is really an interesting one. I would talk a little bit about being ego driven versus heart driven, and I know that when there's nothing wrong with ego in the right environments, but I know that when I'm ego driven because I'm looking for personal affirmation, that I am not as successful as successful as when I am heart driven, and when my business for me personally is heart driven. And when you can do that, then then there is more alignment, and you actually feel you feel and act differently. And the struggle is, what's struggle? Yeah, it's that balance between are we talking financial struggle versus in personal integrity, and does one trump the other? That's the question. At the end of the day, what is more important to you, money or your personal integrity? And I think that needs to be you need to, that's not something I can answer for you. That's something that everyone has to decide for themselves. And like I said, I would say at one point the financial was more important because because of the responsibility I had for 3 other people. Now it's just me that I have to worry about. Then I would say that my personal integrity is more important.
And I think that's really good advice. It does come down to, if your ethics are compromised and you're the breadwinner, or your money counts and you have responsibilities, then whilst you can stand by and I've done this, whilst I could stand by my ethics, and I really wanted to, the decision I made was to stay. So when I had to face that decision, which was completely and utterly against every single core being of me, which is why I said I can answer this every bit, which is why I spent the weekend in bed just sobbing my heart out, was we would have lost our home if I hadn't stayed. And that was a really, really hard decision, because ethically it stood for everything that I was against. But I stayed, I paid the mortgage, and then I found a job which aligned to my actual core values, aligned to my ethics, and I was able to leave with dignity and grace, rather than doing which my heart told me to do, which was storm in on the Monday morning and resign on principle, because actually
With drama.
yeah, with drama, of course. Hey, I'm an ex-actress, of course there's going to be drama. But it still affects me, as you can see. It was never an easy decision, but putting me back, putting my family on the streets at this point, I've already been there. I don't need to go there again. I've lived in my tent, I've lived in my camper van, I've lived with no home. I could do that if I was on my own. I cannot do that to my beautiful husband and my amazing daughter. And so for that reason, I stayed. So I hope that has helped. We've just been talking for 30 minutes again. I don't know where the time goes.
You see, I still know what I was going to say. One of the principles in the goal mapping is awareness. And when you are aware that your principles are compromised and that you're having to make a choice, so maybe at the outset, you're making the choice for staying because of the financial impact. What it is once you're aware, you can start to make a plan to change. And I think that that's really important, is when there is a little bit of a crossover between that integrity, you carry on because you need the financial support, but you start to look for an exit plan. And that's back to having a goal, having something to aim for, and having a plan to get out of it. Because when you feel like you're backed in a corner and you have no choice, that's when we're very uncomfortable, and that's where depression starts to come into play. But when you've raised your awareness in that sense, and you then have a plan and something you can focus on, that you're in control of, that is when you feel empowered.
Brilliant. I think that's a lovely place to wrap up on. If you want to get in touch with Jill Gayk, what's your email address or
It's
your website address?
it's gmgcoaching.co.uk, and the lovely Kirsty Vandenbolk. If you want to be more proficient at speaking like we are today on camera, or having a little bit of a chat about marketing, YouTube is a little bit of your hobby horse, isn't
It
it?
is. Yeah, I love it. I love a bit of YouTube. And I wasn't meaning that. I genuinely meant, rather than talk about me, I genuinely meant, if this has touched you in any way
Yeah.
and you want to go and align your goals, yes, of course I will help you with your marketing. Yes, of course I will help you with your launch on YouTube. And of course I will help you public speak with confidence and clarity. But actually, if you're looking at being in a situation where you're not sure what to do,
Yeah.
do reach out to Jill, because she keeps me, and this is a lovely thing to finish on, she keeps me on the straight and narrow. Thank you, Jill.
Someone's got to do it.